Well, good afternoon, everyone. I had an opportunity, along with a group of senators, to have a dinner last night with the new chancellor of Germany, and to discuss the most urgent issue of the moment, which is the Russian, obviously, threatened invasion of Ukraine. The good news is he confirmed what President Biden said yesterday, that if the invasion occurs, Nord Stream 2 will not go forward. The bad news is that would be after an invasion. And I think the most important thing is for the administration, and the president has all the authority to do this already, to use every tool in his toolbox before the invasion. I'm skeptical, appreciate the effort of bipartisan senators to come together behind some kind of legislation. I don't think Putin will be deterred by any piece of legislation in the United States Senate. Summing it up, the president has all the authority he needs. He needs to decide the timing. I think it's going to be a serious deterrent if it's executed before the invasion, not after.
Whenever the Democrats get power in Washington, D.C., what they typically do is impose one-size-fits-all rules on farmers, small businesses, innovators. I never thought I would see it apply to toddlers, but that's the latest invention of the Democrats, is requiring Head Start schools who provide early education services to low-income families to require toddlers as young as 2 years old to wear masks, even when they're out on the playground. And it just strikes me that this is a great example, another great example of government overreach. This is a decision that ought to be made by parents and guardians. And the president, who has subscribed the idea that he's going to follow the science, seems like that ought to apply here. Science and common sense ought to dictate the decisions that we make with respect to 2-year-old toddlers when it comes to whether or not they're required to wear masks. But President Biden has decided to use tax dollars, basically, through Head Start, all these agencies around the country, 1,600 of them, and they require these 2-year-old toddlers to wear masks. It is a crazy thing, and even the World Health Organization has said, that there isn't any need for toddlers 5 years older or under to wear masks when it comes to their own safety or their interest. And so this is an example again, and we see it all the time. The current administration, they're trying to roll out now the Waters of the United States regulations again, which is a throwback to the Obama years, which is an awful infringement on the rights of landowners and farmers. And they've tried to allow the IRS to snoop into people's bank accounts. They've tried all these vaccine mandates on employers across the country. So yet another example of government overreach. And instead of focusing on the issues the American people care about, which are inflation, the border, crime, safe communities, what's happening in the world, they're obsessed with issues like this. This is just honestly a miscarriage of the use of government when it comes to intruding into people's lives, and I hope they will stop it.
I asked the chief of the Capitol Police to come in today and talk about their short-term response to the overwhelming hours that officers have been working. We're about 200 officers below the authorized level of around 2,000 officers. 135 or so officers retired last year, which is about 50% higher than retirements in recent years. And obviously that's a problem. The contract employees for a short time may be part of the answer to that problem. But it's not just a problem in the Capitol Police Department. You know, in the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County, they had retirements were up about 60% last year over the average of the previous 4 years. My hometown, Springfield, Missouri, is looking for 40 officers. Columbia, Missouri, a department 187, looking for 20 officers. we're going to do what we can here to work with the Capitol Police problem. But I think this problem is clearly a lot bigger than the Capitol Police, starting with defund the police and prosecutors who pledge not to prosecute crimes in certain areas or at certain crimes. Police officers becoming the increasing victims of crime is a huge problem. All of us see the Capitol Police every day, know how critically they are to our ability to function here. It's a problem all over the country. We're doing our best to try to think of new ways to solve that problem.
And I would like to add on to that. We are seeing a significant rise in crime and violent crime across the United States. And this is because of this administration's lack of wherewithal in enforcing law and order. We see it with liberal district attorneys, progressive policies out there that actually make it a crime to punish the crime. So a couple of examples that I will give you today. There's a Democratic DA in Los Angeles that banned bail and prohibited prosecuting the most serious crimes to the full extent of the law. There was also a Democratic DA in New York that released a list of crimes that would not be prosecuted, including resisting arrest. So, folks, Americans are really concerned about this, and it's time that we act accordingly. And that is by making sure that we are supporting the men and women in law enforcement. Stop this ridiculous defund the police movement. Let's make sure that we're being supportive, and let's also step up and enforce the crimes that are being committed. Let's make sure that those are being prosecuted. So I do have an effort to increase penalties on the most serious offenses, going after child sexual predators, making sure that those that are engaged in violent crime are prosecuted and held to the fullest extent of the law. I think these are all things that Republicans can get on board with. Now I'm asking that the administration step it up. Our communities are in danger, and it's not just the largest metro areas. If they're not controlling crime in the metro areas, that literally bleeds over into our rural areas. If they don't take care of it, we will step up and do so.
For years, I called on the International Olympic Committee to move the Olympics out of Communist China. What we knew is Communist China would basically, they would use this to whitewash their genocide. A week ago, I talked about it. Now look, here's some of the headlines. Olympic teams raise concerns over quarantine hotels. You can talk to some of what's happening to some of these people that are being put in these hotels. They had a Uyghur skier become the face of China's Winter Olympics, then they're gone. Never be seen. Now, NBC sort of supported that idea of supporting the fact, oh gosh, they stood up to international pressure over the Uyghurs, genocide over the Uyghurs. And then the NBC refused to take an ad that had NBA's Cantor, the center for the Boston Celtics, in it to talk about the atrocities, the genocide. So Americans believe in human rights. I'm surprised that the International Olympic Committee, and I'm surprised the Biden administration wouldn't do anything to try to get the Olympics moved. I hope American companies like Nike and Coke and NBC will start standing up for human rights rather than profits.
Is it appropriate for the Republican National Committee to censure two sitting members of Congress and also use the words legitimate political discourse in talking about January 6th?
Well, let me give you my view of what happened January the 6th. And we're here. We saw what happened. It was a violent insurrection for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next. That's what it was. With regard to the suggestion that the RNC should be in the business of picking and choosing Republicans who ought to be supported, traditionally the view of the national party committees is that we support all members of our party, regardless of their positions on some issues.
Do you have confidence in her, Rona McDaniel, as chairwoman of the committee?
I do, but the issue is whether or not the RNC should be sort of singling out members of our party who may have different views from the majority. That's not the job of the RNC.
Is it being unfair when it doles out its sentences, especially considering this Minnesota man who was just sentenced to 10 years as opposed to the max 20 years for setting a place on fire and inadvertently killing a man inside, a father of 5 children? Do you think the DOJ is being unfair when it comes to...
Are you talking about the Minnesota
Yes.
case? Well, my understanding is the prosecutors there have recommended sentencing below the sentencing guideline for the crime that they've been charged with because of their sympathies for groups like BLM. That's totally inappropriate. You just heard Senator Ernst talking about the crime problem. Look, you don't improve this issue by going soft on prosecuting crimes. And I think it's important for us to underscore prosecution that fits the crime and support for the police who are trying to keep law and order in our country.
Leader McConnell. Hi, Leader McConnell. Several bills have emerged recently in the Senate that would ban members of Congress from trading stock, including 2 from members of your caucus. Senate Democratic leadership is reportedly interested in this. Kevin McCarthy's interested in it and has broad support with the public. I'm wondering, do you support banning members of Congress and their spouses from trading stock? Why are we not?
Yeah, I haven't given that any serious thought yet. I can just tell you how I operate. I don't own any individual stocks. Everything is in a mutual fund. That's what I advise members to do because I think it prevents such suggestions that you are engaged in insider trading. We'll take a look at that kind of legislation and see what may be appropriate.
Is it fair to say you're open to it then?
We'll take a look at it.
Mr. Leader,
Leader
Yeah.
McConnell, would you support the bill that is expected to come to the floor later this week that would bar mandatory arbitration for sexual assault and harassment?
Well, I'm going to ask Senator Ernst to address that issue. She's been our specialist on that kind of issue.
Yeah, we're just really encouraged. We saw it, I'm sorry. We are encouraged by what has occurred in the House. They have put a tougher definition or a clearly defined definition within the bill, and so we continue to work on it over here. And so I'm encouraged by the progress, but we still have more work to do.
You guys are not yet supportive of the version that passed the House?
There's still a number of things that we're working out, but we certainly are a lot closer and glad to see strong support in the House.
Thoughts on Governor Hogan not running for Senate?
Well, he would have been a great candidate for the Senate. He's been a terrific governor. But looking to November, let's keep our eye on the ball. The president's got a disastrous approval rating. We know that 2 years into a new administration, the off-year election will be a referendum on the performance of this all-Democratic government. And I'm highly optimistic that we're going to have a very good year this fall.
To that end, do things like this censure make it harder?